Straight A's and raw talent are great, but kids need more than that to be successful. They need intangible nuggets like confidence, resilience, and people skills, essential traits known as soft skills. And my next guest will give parents practical strategies to build these qualities, helping you raise kids who are not just smart, but socially strong, well-rounded, and ready to take on the world. Professional speaker and consultant Patrick Dickerson joining me with more about this. And we were saying, we all have soft skills, I think, but we need to hone them and we need to know what they are. I think people don't even know what soft skills means.
Yeah, for sure. They are so important, and really what soft skills are is they allow you to connect, communicate, and create. They are so important. If you think of it this way, a hard skill is what you know. Soft skill is how you show up. And if we put that in maybe a math context, for example, a hard skill is knowing how to solve the problem. The soft skill is knowing how to deal with the stress of that math test and so forth. Dr. Henry Cloud, a very prominent leadership psychologist, said that character is the ability to meet the demands of reality, and kids have to meet the demands of reality, and one of the best ways to teach the ability to meet the demands of reality is through soft skills, or what I like to call character skills.
Soft skills, character skills, good things for kids to even put on a resume when it comes down to it, right? Okay, so you have 4 essential character skills every kid needs, and at the top is communication. I mean, that's our business, so I appreciate that. Let's talk about that.
You know, communication is huge, and it involves so many different things for sure. This is really our connectivity and creative ability, and if we can't express ourselves, if we can't actively listen, we're going to have a big challenge. So that's really a foundational skill for all of us. And there's certain things that we can do to learn or to teach our children and kids to communicate. One of those would be to do like a TED Talk at home, where they can talk about some of the fun things that they like to do and get them used to expressing themselves in front of people. Active listening is a big one. Now, I like to tell the story that my wife often tells about her sister one day when she was trying to tell a story to her dad, and he kept working, and she went up to him and put her hands on his face, lifted his head, and said, "Dad, listen with your eyes." And that's what's so important in today with cell phones and all the other stuff going on. We pretend like we're listening, but are we really? So active listening is a big one. And then just daily conversations. Instead of asking, "How was your day?" "Oh, it was good." Ask, "What was good about your day? Tell me one thing that made you smile, one thing that was a challenge that you had to overcome." That way they get used to communicating and verbalizing their thoughts.
Those open-ended questions are so important. I saw some, I think it was on Instagram, I'm going to do it next year for Christmas. They had the college-age kids do like a PowerPoint presentation about what they were doing in their lives. And I thought, what a great way. It gives them that public speaking, but also lets everyone know kind of about their lives.
Yep.
Okay, I love that.
Yep,
next, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence, we like to call that EQ. It's emotional quotient. And it involves empathy, social skills, self-awareness, all of those type of things. And this is a really big one. And if people aren't, and our kids aren't really able to adapt to that, they're going to struggle because this is our social skill. And so we need to really, in this, you need to learn and teach them to name the emotion. Instead of saying, "I know you're mad," say, "Tell me, I know you're frustrated. Let's talk about that for a minute. What's making you frustrated? How do we work through that?" So they have that adaptability there and be able to speak that. Another huge one is to use stories. Maybe read stories that have emotional themes in them. They don't have to be heavy themes, but just emotional themes, and then talk about it with them and say, "How do you think they handled that? What do you think they were thinking and feeling during that time?"
I like that because oftentimes we just read our kids a book, we don't discuss it. And I think back to like Miss Happy or Mr. Grumpy or whatever those characters are, and those books that really talked about those emotions, like you're saying, that our kids need to learn how to identify those emotions. Now, you said something about a pause. What is the talent of having a pause?
You know, that's a really good one, and I call this the proactive versus reactive muscle. A lot of times when there's a challenge, our emotions get flared, we get angry, we're sad, and we react versus being proactive. So teaching the pause is that proverbial count to 10, taking the deep breath. And as we start to think about how we're going to react, we're able to be proactive in our approach versus reactive, and that saves us a lot in the end.
And are we telling kids to take that moment, that pause, for most emotions? Only when you're angry? When are we telling kids is the time to take that moment?
I think the most appropriate approach there would be in situations where they think if they react too quickly, it may put them in an uncomfortable situation, would probably be the best way to put that.
Yeah, we all need it as parents too, right?
Yes, oh yeah, you know, and we're talking about kids here, but it is our parents, we need to learn from that as well.
Okay, your next point is resilience. How do we teach kids that?
You know, resilience is a huge one. And in fact, I was at a conference recently where Jesse Etzler was speaking, and he said disappointment is being stripped from our kids. And it's because we're trying to protect them, and not necessarily that that's a bad thing, that we're trying to protect them, but we need to allow them to face the challenges of life. And so one of the things we do is we teach yes and then thinking like, what are you learning from this, and how do we proceed with that? You need to normalize failure. What is it that we're learning from this? You can talk about your own experiences, for example, and say, you know what, this was a hard day. I didn't do real well. Maybe I can do better tomorrow. In fact, John Maxwell has a great book out. It's called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And we need to realize that you know, life is, we're going to have failures, we're going to have setbacks, but if we can learn from them and grow, that's what's going to help us. And then encourage problem solving. You know, it's, okay, this is the situation, rather than try to solve the problem for them. Okay, this is what you're facing. What can we do to overcome it? How do we fill that? And then one of my favorites is a resilience jar, where you could have a jar of things that maybe your kids are struggling with, or just that you want to challenge them with, and have them pick it out. Maybe it's they're learning to read or ride a bike, or they're working on a hard word or some other skill. Then you work with them on that, and they learn that resilience and how to overcome difficult things, so that you can say, I can do hard things.
Yeah,
that's what's important.
And lastly, adaptability. How do we teach that?
Encourage creativity. You could simply take a box and say, how are these different things, what could we do differently with this box? What are the many things we could do with this simple box? Another one is to change small routines. I think we all get into our routine, and some of our more, I call them safe, steady, and secure individuals, they love their routine, and if that gets rocked, they have a hard time. So morning routine, maybe change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And even better, give that child an opportunity to plan the day or plan an activity where they learn that, hey, if things don't go exactly as planned, it's okay. Life goes on.
Well, these are all such great things, helping us learn those soft skills and then passing those on, teaching them to our kids. And you do professional coaching. How can people reach out to you?
You know, I'm on all the social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, via email or phone, or some of the best ways for that. So.
All right, thank you so much for sharing with us. We all got to work on it.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks.